Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com. Welcome to the second episode in our new What's in Your Quiver series. Basically, we got a lot of comments this season asking for us to show the skis that we personally use. So we started a few weeks ago, or maybe closer to a month ago now, with Bob's quiver. As Bob mentioned in his video, specifically him and myself, but really a big part of our company, we spend a lot of time testing other skis. As you guys know, we're constantly putting out reviews. I have skied, just for a reference, I counted the other day and I have skied somewhere around 130 different skis this season. So these are mine. I do own more skis than this, but this is kind of what I consider to be my quiver. As Bob also mentioned, I don't really get to spend as much time on a lot of these skis as I would like to, but I suppose that's not a bad problem to have, that the reason I can't ski my skis is because I'm skiing too much. So some of you asked if we could include boots, so I thought we would start with boots. This is my kind of everyday go-to boot, and it has been for 3 seasons now. This is the Nordic Pro Machine 130. I really like this boot. There's kind of some influences from their race boots, like their Dobermans, but it's a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more forgiving for the way that I like to ski and the different stuff that I do, which you'll see as we get through my skis. So yeah, I use this boot in everything from local race leagues to in the park. 98 last, 130 flex boot, pretty straightforward, 4-buckle, classic overlap design. But yeah, I really, really like this boot. And then this is my touring boot. I basically wanted the closest thing I could get to the Pro Machine 130. So naturally I got the Nordica Strider 130 Pro. A little bit wider, lighter. I find them a little bit less precise than the Pro Machine, but obviously work really well for touring. And I have a couple bindings that I can't use with these, at least when touring I can't use with those. And they are like a touch more comfortable too. So there are some days, like if I'm coaching or something like that, where I'll opt to take that instead of the Pro Machine. But I think for a 98 last boot, the Pro Machine's pretty darn comfy. I almost replace boots every season. If you're curious, these have about 110 days on them so far. I can get 2 seasons out of a boot like that, but I find that halfway or even like a third of the way through the second season, they start to get a little wonky. When you get close to like 150 days, they start to act a little weird. So those may be retired at the end of this season. But I'll likely just get another pair of them. So I organized my wall a little bit different than Bob. I went narrowest to widest. Some of these are kind of silly and we'll get through them really quickly. Others I ski a lot or really like a lot. I guess I shouldn't say that because I like all of these skis quite a bit. But yeah, let's start over here with the K2 Disruption Mti. As you'll notice as we go through, I have a lot of twin tips. There was a time in my life, even as recently as like 5 or 6 years ago, where I didn't really own any directional skis. Having tested and skied a ton of different stuff over the past half a decade or closer to a full decade, really closer to a full decade or maybe even like 15 years, I started to realize that I really wanted a ski like this in my quiver. So not a full-on race ski. We have a full review of the Disruption Mti up if you want to kind of dive more into its details. But it's not full race construction, but for me it's enough. So I use this ski on super firm Vermont mornings when I want to just go out and carve. This is the 175, which I could go longer to 180, but I've never really felt like I needed to. I'm 5'10", like 150 to 160 pounds, depending on how active I've been recently. These things, I always forget exactly. They're 74 underfoot, so not as narrow as some, but pretty much as narrow as I ever want to go. I use them in Ski Bum Race League too, which they work really well. They've they've been great for me. I did ski race a little bit when I was a kid, mostly like junior high school era and a little bit before then. I didn't race in high school. I was actually a Nordic skier and then switched to competing in park skiing and freestyle. So pretty fun for me to get back into a race course, and to me these have the power and the precision I need, but a little bit of forgiveness, so if I get off my line or something like that, I can get right back on it. And I also find that this turn radius works really well. This is an 18.2 turn radius, so even shorter than like a cheater GS ski. And our beer league race course is pretty tight. It's kind of like in between slalom and GS, so I find that works really well. Next ski, this is easily the silliest up here. I'll just call this the Nordic Snickers Ski. It's basically a Soul Rider 84 with a Snickers graphic. You've probably never seen these before. I had never seen these before. I think, gosh, it was like 4 or 5 years ago that 7 or 8 pairs of these showed up on an order from Nordica. And I pretty quickly was like, yeah, there's no way I'm not going home with a pair of those. So yeah, Soul Rider 84, it's camber, it's cap construction. This one's really short. I actually can't even remember how long it is. I think it's like a 168, or maybe even shorter than that. But interestingly, I have used these quite a bit, but they have never touched snow. I coach for an organization called Green Mountain Academy, coach a talented group of young rippers in the park. Every once in a while I'll have an opportunity to, or we as an organization will travel to like an airbag or a water ramp or something like that. So I wanted some skis that I could use that worked really well for airbags and water ramps, because every once in a while 35-year-old Jeff feels like doing some jumping too to work on tricks. So yeah, interestingly, these have never seen snow. This is basically a Look SPX. This is back when Rossignol was branding some of the Look bindings, so they called it like Axial 120. But pretty straightforward. I didn't feel like I needed like a crazy binding on these skis, so just opted for, you know, a less expensive option that works. And I should mention the MTI has an integrated XL12. I do like stronger bindings, which you'll see as we get through my skis, but I haven't had any issues with those. I got to see some of the like development and prototyping of those skis and tested them quite a bit, and I never had any issue with the binding, so I just figured, yeah, why not trust it? This is a Armada Declivity 92 Ti. So similar to the Disruption Mti, you know, I've historically owned a lot of twin tips, and I really was getting to the point where I wanted a directional all-mountain ski that still had like kind of a free ride feel to it, but more powerful, more precise than things that we'll get to over on that side of the wall. So I opted for this Armada Declivity 92. Really happy that I did. There are definitely skis out there that are more powerful in this category. You know, that's another thing that comes up in our reviews and our comparisons, like Brahma 88, something like that. To me, that ski is more powerful. I'm not the heaviest skier. I'm not like too demanding on a ski when carving or linking carves. So I found that this ski worked really well for me. And also what I like about it is, you know, it's got a little bit more rocker than some, and the tips are kind of designed to be more compliant than a lot of skis in this category that kind of hit the all-mountain precision description, I suppose. So I find these perfectly fun in moguls, trees, stuff like that. If I'm going out skiing with friends or family who are directional all-mountain skiers, I take this because I can take it anywhere on the mountain. I can carve turns on firm snow. I can play around in moguls. I can play in the trees, stuff like that. I think it's a very well-rounded ski, and it's still basically the most important thing for me in this ski was to at least hit the level of precision and edge grip that I wanted so I could ski fast and aggressively and not worry about that. On these, I have an Armada branded STH13. This is probably my second favorite binding in the world. second to pivots, which we'll get to. I just feel like this toe piece gives you a really good connection to the ski. Works really well on like a directional ski like this where you're driving a lot of turns from like this portion of the ski. And as you'll see, when we get over here, my binding selection gets a little crazy. And basically the reason why I opted with 13 on these is I'm not like going huge. I'm not jumping off a lot of really big stuff on these. I'm generally staying on the ground. And I don't feel like I need a crazy strong binding just skiing around all mountain. This is a Blizzard. Oh, and I should say that was 180. If I skipped over the length of the declivities, those are 180. This is a Blizzard Zero G95. This is my most used touring ski. I don't do a lot of touring, but when I do, especially around here, this is the ski that I take. A lot of people, when they see this ski, like when I'm out touring or something and I run into a group of people, I'll get a lot of weird looks and a lot of comments asking why I put a shift on a ski this light. It is a setup that you don't see that often. You know, I think this ski is certainly light enough that most people would put a full-on tech binding on it. I am pretty much always going to go with a slightly stronger binding over the slightly lighter binding. I don't mind weight really at all. This is by far the lightest touring setup I personally have ever owned, so to me it feels like extremely efficient and really easy to use. And I opted for the 185 in this ski, which is a little longer than somebody my size might. I'm again like 5'10", 150 to 160. I'm not really sure exactly where. And to me the 185 just gives me a little bit more ski to play with, you know, because it's light and like fairly soft flexing, or at least not like tremendously stable in the tips and tails. I like that I have a little more ski under me to just trust. So we're getting into really good touring season here in Stowe right now, or northern Vermont in general. Not too much snow left, but when the lifts shut down this time of year, that's when you'll often see me up there touring on a ski like that. Now these are like my babies. This is the Soul Rider 97. Bob talked a lot about his Soul Rider 87. I ski these more than anything else up here by far. I ski park on these. Like I said, you know, I started competing in park skiing and slopestyle and big air, specifically rail jams and stuff like that, when I was around 18. So I've been doing that for 17 years, although I don't really compete much anymore. So this is my park ski. It's completely center mounted. It's got a pivot 18 on it. It's not particularly light because of the pivot 18. But to me, this is perfect for where I am in my life, my ski career, whatever you want to call it. This works really, really well for me. I used to ski the Soul Rider 87 probably more than the 97. Basically what I used to do, even as recently as like the beginning of last year, I had a 177 Soul Rider 87 and a 185 Soul Rider 97. And I used the 87 specifically as a park ski and the 185 97 as more of an all-mountain ski. Kind of felt like there was too much crossover between the 185 Soul Rider 97 and the next ski we're going to talk about. So I kind of decided to simplify that, get rid of the 87, just have a center-mounted 177 Soul Rider 97. In addition to the park, I use these, what I like about them is I think among twin tips in this width range, or among twin tips in general, the Soul Riders have some of the best torsional stiffness, so I find that they hold an edge really well, and the construction of these skis, you know, it's basically just wood and carbon, I'm sure fiberglass too, but they're very snappy, so you kind of combine the torsional stiffness with a lot of energy out of the flex pattern, and I find them really satisfying, even just linking carving turns. And then to me, 97 is wide enough that I can take them into the trees. You know, I'm pretty much every day that I'm coaching, more or less, I'm on this ski. Sometimes if we get some soft snow overnight, we're not just in the park, the kids want to like go ski the woods or whatever, I can take these to the mountain knowing that I can do whatever I want to do on these and they'll work just fine. I can rip around groomers, I can play in the park, I can play in trees, I can ski some powder. They're gonna do it. Not everyone out there would feel that way on a ski like that. Center mounted 177 in powder is a lot of work, really hard on the quads, but I'm used to it. I'm used to being pretty centered on a ski, so you can probably tell from how beat up they are, but those things get a lot of use. And I was going to say at the beginning, but this is pretty representative of what my quiver will be next year. I'll just be replacing these with another pair. I slided a lot of rails and stuff like that, so they're pretty beat up underfoot. You got some edge cracks and stuff, which will happen to any ski. But yeah, really happy, very happy Soul Rider 97 skier. And then this is kind of my I don't know, other baby. I have two ski children, I guess. I was so excited when they made this ski and still am. This is Enforcer 104 free. I have it in a 186. I have this is actually an old FKS 18 on here, but same thing as the Pivot 18. This is like maybe one of the best looking orange FKS bindings still out, unless somebody has a brand new one like sitting in a box. But I had these kind of stashed aside knowing that I would want to put them on something someday. This is actually like the 2020 Enforcer graphic, which to me is still my favorite, although the ski itself hasn't changed. These actually serve a few different purposes to me, which is kind of interesting. It's pretty much become my powder ski. I have these mounted a little bit more traditionally than the Soul Riders, so they're about like 3.5 or 4 centimeters back from true center. Pretty sure I'm remembering that correctly. It's basically like right in between the recommended spot and what true center would be. So yeah, I use these as my kind of go-to powder ski here in Stowe. I've found that I don't really need a ski much wider here in Vermont. 104 to me with this rocker profile is great. I also use these, interestingly, I use these as the skis I take when I want to ski really aggressively. So some days I'll wake up and I just feel like skiing fast and feel like skiing powerfully and just like want to see what I can do on the mountain that day. And I really like this ski because of the construction. It's 2 sheets of metal, so it's very damp, very strong, very quiet and stable. But then the amount of tail rocker and the amount of rocker in general means that if I am skiing really aggressively and like get in trouble or make a mistake, I can get out of that situation pretty quickly. So despite how hefty they are, they are reasonably heavy, and I'd say the Soul Riders are too with that binding on there. These are a little heavier, but even though there's a lot of ski on your feet, I find them pretty agile and pretty maneuverable. And then kind of the benefit is I can also ski switch on these. So yeah, when the Enforcers came out first, like the Enforcer, not when they came out originally, but when they were kind of reintroduced and they started with the Enforcer 100, I'm pretty sure I was skiing on the Soul Rider then, and I was kind of like, can you guys just like make the Soul Rider but with this construction? And this is the closest thing that we've gotten to that, and to me it's really good. I think this is a really good ski, and I really enjoy skiing it a lot. These are ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I'm psyched on these, but they're silly. In the first Quiver video, Bob said something, and we've said similar things to this before. Buy the skis for the type of skiing that you do, not the type of skiing that you want to do. I think every ski up until now has been a good example of that. All of these skis serve a specific purpose in my quiver, and I do ski them all quite a lot. I also am the position that I'm in the ski industry. I have a lot of skis. I acquire a lot of stuff, so I feel like I'm in a position that I can do this. This is an Enforcer 110, 2021 Enforcer 110 with a 2021 Duke PT16. it is perhaps the heaviest touring ski I have ever held in my hand. So that's kind of why I say it's silly. But again, going back to my Zero Gs, like I'm not too concerned about weight. So this to me is kind of doubling as my big mountain powder ski and like big mountain touring ski. So obviously we're based here in Stowe, Vermont. So you might be thinking like, well, you're never going to use that. And you might be right. But in a typical season, in a non-pandemic season, I do get the opportunity to go out west a handful of times throughout the season. And I will most likely be bringing these skis with me whenever I get that opportunity. I also kind of joke that it's like my heli skiing setup. I have never been heli skiing, so again, kind of a silly joke. But yeah, if I went heli skiing, I would take these. I might take the 104s, but chances are I would take these. Different mount point on these than the 104. It's very similar ski, very similar rocker camber shape. I only have these about 2 centimeters forward from recommended. Again, I'm not going to be skiing these backwards very much or anything like that. If I do want to ski this ski and want to ski backwards, I'll take the 104s. And then last ski down here, this is kind of another silly one, and this is actually the most recent addition to my quiver. This is a special edition Reckoner 112. It was a artist collaboration with Jeff McFetridge. This is actually, and I should say 186 here in the Enforcer 104, 185 in the Enforcer 110. I actually used to own the Enforcer 110 in a 191. That's my third pair of Enforcer 110s also, quick note. And I've basically decided that 185 is the sweet spot for me. So back to this thing. This is a special edition Reckoner 112. It's only a 177. And this thing's got a pretty big rocker profile, a lot of tip and tail rocker. So at 177, it skis really short. That was kind of the intention of these skis. So I said with the Enforcer 104 that's kind of my go-to powder ski. This is also something that I am going to use more often on East Coast powder days, especially if I want to just specifically go out and ski like really tight trees or something like that. This is also going to be what I use if I go and build a backcountry jump, especially here on the East Coast. Again, they're shorter, they're lighter than the Enforcers, so a little easier to spin on and stuff like that. And then I also have them mounted right on the team line, which is almost true center, not quite. So I used these skis coaching a couple of weeks ago when it was really, really sloppy and just kind of buttered around the mountain and just played. So yeah, these are basically my like soft snow jibby skis. And these got a Pivot 14. Only reason was because Look was sold out of the 15 and the 18. But yeah, I'm not like doing anything ridiculous on these skis. Like the Enforcer 104 and the Soul Rider 97, like these are what I would use if I was worried about how big I was going, how hard I was being on my equipment. Like say I build a backcountry jump here in Vermont somewhere, if it's under 40 feet, I'd probably ski these. If it's over 40 feet, I'd probably ski those. So just a little insight into how I think about this stuff and where this ski kind of fits into things. But this is another one that's kind of silly. I had the opportunity to pick up one of these artist collaboration skis. I think the Reckoner series in general is a lot of fun. Another ski that I got to kind of help with the development of, these and the Disruptions I skied before they were production models out in Seattle. So kind of have like an affection for these Disruptions and the Reckoners just because I got to kind of see some of the behind the scenes story of why they were designed, how they were built, and kind of how they're intended to ski. So that's it. That's my quiver. Hopefully that was interesting. And yeah, as always, let me know if you have any questions. I guess I'm like a pretty unique skier, which maybe comes across in all of our content. I don't know if it does or not. But yeah, I don't think this is not like your average skier's quiver, but hopefully you find it interesting, and let me know if you have any questions. Really good spring skiing here in Stowe right now, so if you're in the area, maybe I'll see you up there on the slopes.